Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Ite Namani.
Well, I remember specifically the first time I think that I remember having an interaction with him was in San Francisco, and I was a new devotee, wasn't initiated, but somehow or other I was able to go on the morning walk. And although I knew that Prabhupada was going to be my spiritual master, I wanted a direct confirmation from him. And so I kept looking at him during the walk, trying to catch his gaze. And every time I did, he would avoid it. And so sometime in the walk, maybe towards the end, probably when I least expected it, Prabhupada planted his cane, stopped, and looked directly at me, right through me. And in that brief, fraction of a second, it was as if I became aware that he was Trikalagya, and that I had absolute faith somehow that he knew who I was in my past. He knew what I was thinking. He knew what the future was going to hold for me, and I felt like this, that he was my spiritual master. It was very impactful. It was very impactful. It felt like a mystical experience. It was almost within that brief second that my soul traveled with his to the end of time, and that. I had like no more questions in my mind, no more doubts ever that I can remember that Prabhupada was, my spiritual master eternally.
We were in Prabhupada's room once, in the early 70s. I was sannyasi, so maybe 73, 74. And it was a beautiful afternoon. The sun was setting and golden rays were shining on Prabhupada. It was very sublime. A nice breeze was blowing. It was a very beautiful atmosphere. And Prabhupada took us back to old India, the turn of the century, and when he was a child, when he was a young householder. And he took us there, actually, and he began to talk about how people used to work and relationships between householders and their servants, and how people used to cook and things. So there we were back in India with Prabhupada. And then he took us back farther to his early childhood, when he was playing with, not playing, but having the Rath Yatra and worshiping Radha Govinda. And then only Karandar and I were in the room. And Prabhupada looked at us very strongly and said, whatever I'm doing now, I was doing then. Do you understand? And of course we were at that point kind of speechless. And then Prabhupada said, never was there a time when I did not know Krishna. Do you understand? And he said it in such a way that it was clearly the case. So that was a very powerful experience.
I remember one time Prabhupada met with some reporters, and Prabhupada was explaining that this movement is presenting the science of God, the absolute truth, the absolute knowledge, the highest knowledge to mankind, and this will save mankind. And they were asking, well, how do you know it's the absolute truth? What, are you telling us that you hear God speak, and therefore you know what God wants? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, yes. Now, I was in this room thinking that these reporters, they're going to take this the wrong way because they're not devotees to really understand that that's Prabhupada's position. So I said, what Prabhupada means is that the message of God is coming down through parampara, this disciplic line, unbroken. And so when Prabhupada repeats it, that is the message of... And Prabhupada interrupted me. He says, no, that is not what I mean. And the reporter says, so what, you're saying you directly see God and speak to God? I said, yes. So, apart from me being revealed as an utter fool for even trying to interject, because Prabhupada had a way of preaching, of knowing how he wanted to preach to reporters, to scientists, to philosophers, to scholars, to priests and religionists. And there were times where he would call someone a rascal to their face. And he probably knew what he was saying and doing perfectly. This was one of those times where he's actually willing to reveal himself to a non-devotee like that.
This was in the Los Angeles temple. He was seen during a very ecstatic kirtan laughing. And after the kirtan was over, the devotees asked why he had been laughing. And Prabhupada said, oh, he was laughing at Narada Muni. And the devotee said, oh, Narada Muni? Yes, Narada Muni was there. Oh, what was Narada Muni doing? He said, he was laughing. They said, why was he laughing? He was laughing at all the mlechas and chandalas dancing and chanting Hare Krishna.
They were building the World Trade Center at that time. Srila Prabhupada was especially unimpressed with this artificial nuts and bolts society that has gigantic skyscrapers and yet no means to maintain the people that live inside. So it was interesting, somebody said to him that, you know, they're building the world's tallest buildings over there, Prabhupada. He said, they will all be destroyed, the World Trade Center. And in fact, I mean, astrologically, they were destroyed under the nakshatra that Prabhupada was born on, Mrigashirsha nakshatra. Prabhupada, you know, he often revealed that he could see the future, but he did in kind of an oblique fashion.
I brought Srila Prabhupada a chadar, very similar to this one. And for some reason, I didn't want him to know where it came from. I had bought it at Kadigram at the Ashoka Hotel, because Kadi has a branch at the Ashoka Hotel as well. And for some reason, I just didn't want him to know that I frequented or that I'd set foot in the Ashoka Hotel. I don't know why to this day. So I took all the tags off and I put it in a brown paper bag, so there was no indication of where it came from. And again, this was at Anandiketan. I brought it up and I put it on his desk and offered my obeisances. And as I was getting up, Srila Prabhupada said, so this is from Ashoka Hotel? So to this day I understand that Prabhupada knows everything, everywhere, at all times. His vision is supernatural, his supernatural vision. But again, one tends to forget that, but it's a very clear indication.
So I had a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita where there is a picture of Prabhupada holding a champak flower like this with lot of sandalwood paste and the flower garland, and he's holding the flower and he's looking like this. So that was the only book I had where I could show him some work of ISKCON. Other Bhagavatam volumes have been sold and we have to get back to Bangalore. So I brought that book with me. And I went to meet him because he's the chief of the 3000. So I went and showed him some things about ISKCON and then showed him this picture. Said, this is our Guru Maharaj, he has translated these books. So he looked at that picture for a while and he brought some things from his little box, some thread and some things like that, and he was measuring Prabhupada's forehead and his ears and things like that. It took about 10-15 minutes and then he shook his head. Then he said that all the 4 Vaishnavacharyas, he said, in one person. So then he looked at me and he said, you know that we are Shaivites, and because we are not impressionless, so we have nothing opposite to Vaishnava Sampradaya. But we are worshippers of Shiva. So we do bhakti to Shiva in person. Then he said, these Vaishnava Sampradayas, all the four acharyas, if they come in one body, that is how this person's features are. And he said, I'm an expert in Samudrika Lakshana Shastra. I can see from here. I wish you have showed me a full picture. So then I had a picture that I was worshipping, so I took that picture out and I showed him. Then he again went on, and he has his lens. And he did another study, then he said that I was not wrong. He said, they are all working through this person. Then he said, you are very fortunate to be with him. Then he said that some movement like that, this is what I would like to be in my next life. So then I said, but I thought your ultimate is to go to Kailash. Then he said, yes, if I go there, and Kailash exists for a long time, so I can always tell Lord Shiva that I want to join some movement like this, and I want to spread dharma everywhere. Then he was very happy, and he said that, you please give this book to me. I want to keep this, because this has given me the highest experience of studying a person's feature. So I want to keep this book with me. So I gave it to him as complimentary copy.
And on that last day, everyone was chanting. At first there was a kind of a back and forth, and then everybody began chanting together in the last moments. And again, it's not something you can empirically establish, but it felt like there were many more people in that room than were actually there. It felt like there was a heavenly chorus. It felt like there must be so many other personalities from other places who were present. And there was this tremendous feeling. I'm not trying to make light of it. It was like a Technicolor finish. You know, like when you have this spectacular ending to a movie or something. It was like this glorious chanting was going on, and Prabhupada was, with his last breath, was Hare Krishna, you know, uttering the syllables Hare Krishna, and you could almost feel the ascent. You know, it was like you sensed, okay, he's ascending now, he's with Krishna. And the emotions were so intense in the room, and some devotees became completely hysterical, crying. One devotee threw himself on the floor and just weeping, he couldn't control himself. Other people were completely stricken or stoic, or there were so many different kinds of reactions. But it was a very intense moment. But there was nothing inauspicious about it. It was completely auspicious. Sometimes they describe the sentiments of the gopis as being simultaneous nectar and poison. It was kind of like that. It was ecstatic because you knew that Prabhupada had perfectly executed the mission of human life and was back to Godhead. And but for us, it was loss, irretrievable and irreplaceable loss. So it was a very difficult period.
I remember this one lady. She raised her hand after Prabhupada had finished the Bhagavad Gita class, and she had a question. And she said, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that if one thinks of Krishna at the time of death, one will go to Krishna. Now my question is, what if I think of you at the time of death? Will it have the same effect? So Prabhupada didn't answer right away. He sort of closed his eyes and he was thinking for like maybe 2 seconds. And then he smiled very nicely and he said, that is very nice. He said, yes, it will have the same effect.